We're making a healthier pumpkin roll made gluten-free with oat and almond flour. And the tangy creamy filling is made with undetectable blended cottage cheese without any cream cheese. It's my yummy twist on the classic that everyone can enjoy even after they eat it. Hello, my name is Nicole Bonilla, and if you love healthier recipes to our favorite foods, then you are in the right place. Now you're welcome to jot down these ingredients as we go along, or you can click on the link that's in the video description below, and that will take you to the full recipe with all the details, including nutrition facts, ingredients and substitutions, and frequently asked questions. Now to make this easy pumpkin roll, we're going to start by mixing together our dry ingredients. Now there are a variety of flour combinations that you can use, and my favorite is combining almond flour and oat flour. And I include a table in the recipe card that shows all the flour options, and you can access it by clicking on the link in the description. So we're going to start with 2/3 of a cup of almond flour and 1/3 of a cup of oat flour. And then to add some elasticity to the cake, we're going to add 1/4 cup of tapioca flour. And for our seasonings, we'll add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. And then we'll add 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we'll just mix this together with a little whisk. That starts to smell really good. And then we can set this aside. Now to help make that cake really spongy, we want to whip our eggs and our sugar together. So we're going to start with 3 eggs, and then I'm adding 1/2 cup of cane sugar, but you can use regular sugar if you like. And then I'm just using the whisk on my immersion blender, and we're just going to blend this for about a minute until it's nice and frothy. Then we'll add 3/4 of a cup of pumpkin puree, which is different than pumpkin pie filling, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And I'll just quickly mix this together until they're incorporated. And now we can pour our wet mixture in with our dry mixture. And then I'm just going to whisk this together just until incorporated. Now to bake the cake, you'll want to use a jelly roll pan, which is about 10 inches wide and 15 inches long. And that works best to line your pan with parchment paper. And I like to go in and just kind of score the inside corner, which makes for a cleaner edge on the cake. And then you'll want to lightly spray it with some non-stick. I'm just using some coconut oil. And then we're just going to pour in our cake batter. And then you want to spread this around as evenly as you can. And I find it works really well to kind of push it up into the corners first from the center. And then once it looks fairly even, come in and give your pan a little bit of a shimmy, holding onto your parchment paper. And a couple taps to remove any air bubbles. And then this is ready to go into a 350-degree oven for 12 minutes. And then while our cake is baking, we're going to spread out a nice thin towel on our surface. And then using a small sieve, we'll add about 1/4 a cup of some powdered sugar. And then we're just going to spread that out on our towel. And that's just going to help coat the cake once we flip it over. And then we'll just wait till our cake comes out of the oven. Well, our cake just came out of the oven and it looks and smells so good. And now we want to get it flipped over onto our towel. And we want to work quickly while the cake is still warm. So I'm going to give it a little shake, which means it's nice and loose in the pan. Make sure my oven mitts are not in front of it. Woohoo, how about that? We even got our parchment paper off in one swoop. Now we want to roll up the cake from one end, so I'm just going to flip over the towel and then very gently start to fold it. And I'll just let that roll. And now the cake is going to cool into this round shape, which will eliminate cracking later. So I'm just going to set this on my counter to allow it to cool for a little bit, and then I'll put it into the fridge to cool completely. So you'll want to do this step at least an hour or 2 before you want to frost it, or you could even do it the night before and let it sit in the fridge overnight. Well, I have one here that I made last night that is cooled, so now we can make the filling. Now you could also use cream cheese instead of the cottage cheese, but I think this is really delicious. So I'm just going to use the chopper cup with my immersion blender, and then we're just going to add 1 cup of cottage cheese, and you could use small curd, large curd. I like to use the full fat for the most creaminess. And then we'll add 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And then a really important ingredient to make it taste like cream cheese is to add some lemon juice. So I'm just going to add 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. And then we'll put on the lid, and I'm just going to blend this on high until it is smooth and creamy. And it helps halfway to come in with your spatula and just kind of scrape down the sides. And then I'm just going to take out my blade. And to avoid any clumps, we'll sift in 3/4 of a cup of powdered cane sugar. You can use regular powdered sugar if you like. And then I'm going to switch back to my whisk attachment. And I included a link to this immersion blender set in the description below if you'd like to check it out. And then I'll set the speed to low so we don't have a giant puff of powdered sugar. And to help it set, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. And I should have added this before, but that's okay, we can add it now. And we'll blend that together. And that looks fantastic. And now's a really good time to come in with a pinky test to test the sweetness level. That is perfect. You could certainly add a little more powdered sugar if you like. Now we can unwrap our cooled cake very carefully and then dump out the cottage cheese filling. I'm not going to spread it too far towards the ends because I know it's going to naturally push out as we roll it. Now, if you could use more healthy inspiration on a regular basis, I invite you to join my email list. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, and that is the best way for us to stay connected. Now that our filling is spread evenly, we're just going to roll this back up. And we don't want to put too much pressure to push out all that filling, but we still want to keep it nice and tight. And if you get a little too much filling towards the end, we'll go ahead and scrape some of that out. And we'll cut open a piece of plastic wrap. And we'll carefully roll our pumpkin roll right into the center of it. And then roll it up in the plastic wrap. And now this is ready to go into the fridge to cool completely for at least a few hours. And you could even put it into your freezer first if you want to speed that up for maybe about an hour, and then put it into your fridge. And then here's what's left, one that I made yesterday. You can see it was a huge hit in my house. You can see how we have this beautiful roll of filling. And it is super easy to slice and ready to sample. That is divine. As soon as you bite in, you get the best flavor coming from that spongy cake that has a perfect texture. That oat and almond flour and all those spices just are so delicious. And then you bite into that sweet and tangy cream filling that I would have no idea is cottage cheese. And I love that it tastes a little bit lighter than a traditional pumpkin roll, but has all the same delicious flavor and emotional satisfaction. And I love that it's made with clean, natural ingredients, so I'm gonna feel just as good even after I eat it. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen. I've included the link to the full recipe and it's in the video description below, and that will take you to my website, gentletummy.com. And I invite you to like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I invite you to join me again in my kitchen.